Chapter 7. Revenge. The Dead Zone.
You were killed by Devil Yeti. Corpse status, untouched. Resurrection, respawn, available. Minus 20,000 ranking for non-PvP death. Current ranking, 2,105,685,985. Current percentile, 99. 20 minutes until corpse respawn available. Would you like to respawn in the fields of misery now?
There was no longer any ground, no sky, only darkness. He heard voices all around him, laughing and swearing and shouting coming from every direction. For a moment it sounded like chaos, but as he focused on the single voices, he could make out conversations and orders. People were talking to each other.
Yeah, pal. Landis was supposed to tank against the Bone Dragon, but ended up shitting himself and running away,
Crinnan heard someone say.
Fucking Landis,
another voice replied.
Why do we even play with him?
I'm right here.
A voice whom Crinnan expected was Landis snapped.
I haven't even crossed the 80th percentile yet, and you guys think I can tank a Bone Dragon?
If you'd do your job, we wouldn't have any problems,
the first voice said.
I could have healed you if you weren't running and screaming.
I didn't want to die,
Landis griped.
What is this place?
Crinnan asked out loud. The voices that were speaking near him stopped, and he suddenly saw 4 lights float towards him.
What do you mean?
Landis asked.
Are you new?
Yeah,
Crinnan replied.
What percentile are you?
Another of the people asked.
We could use a 5th. When we respawn, we're going to the 2nd level to try a few Blood Games rounds. 99 it says,
Crinnan replied.
Oh,
the person said.
Yeah, never mind, we're good.
Okay, fuck you too,
Crinnan spat.
No, fuck you, newbie,
Landis added.
Show some respect, we're not going to carry you, that's just not how this works.
I'm not asking you to,
Crinnan replied.
Well, have fun dying,
another of the voices called out. The 4 lights then turned and floated away.
Fucking Govians,
Crinnan sighed. He looked around the dark place some more, and then back to the message in front of him.
17 minutes, 46 seconds, 25 milliseconds, until corpse respawn available. Would you like to respawn in the fields of misery now? Yes or no?
Crinnan remembered the fields of misery being the place he originally fell from the sky at. It was the first place he had landed in the hells, and he felt like he had traveled so far since then. He didn't want to lose all that progress.
No,
Crinnan said in response to the prompt before him.
17 minutes, 30 seconds, 23 milliseconds, until corpse respawn available. Resurrection initiated. Stand by.
I said no,
Crinnan yelled.
No!
The blackness surrounding him turned to gray and then white. Crinnan felt a force tugging on his body, and he screamed in resistance. But it was futile. He could not fight it. It picked him up like a toad in the hands of a 3-year-old. He saw only light for a moment, and then he smelled smoke again.
Come on, buddy,
Crinnan heard a voice call out.
Get to your feet. Let's finish this devil yeti together.
Crinnan opened his eyes and saw that he was whole again. He wasn't falling from the sky or in the fields of misery. He was exactly where he had died. The devil yeti had wandered a small distance away, and as Crinnan stood, he found himself in the company of a player with gray leather armor and a staff in hand. A white hood covered its eyes, and as Crinnan came back to life, the player gave him a perplexed look.
Wait, are you a prisoner or a player?
The person asked with a tone of confusion.
When you were dead, it said you were a player. Now that you are back, it's showing some kind of a weird error. What is going on?
Hells if I know. But don't worry about it, Govian.
Crinnan didn't hesitate. He jammed the tip of his sword through the player's throat. He fell to his knees and tried to speak, but couldn't get any words out as his vocal cords had been severed. Crinnan pulled his sword away, and the player fell forward, face down into the ground.
Player, Dandelion, 19, executed. Player rank, 1,845,129,587. Congratulations, Pretty Kitty 6969420. You have advanced in rank. Previous rank, 2,105,685,985. New rank, 1,975,407,786. Previous percentile, 99%. New percentile, 93%.
Hey! What the hells was that all about?
Crinnan heard the voice of the player he had just killed shout. The sound was coming from his dead body. His lips did not move, but for some reason, Crinnan could hear him speaking.
Why did you do that?
He angrily shouted.
I just resurrected you! We were going to go kill the devil yeti together!
He paused, and Crinnan heard a sudden and frightful gasp.
What is this? Prisoner? How did you... How am I... You are the one responsible for this. You're the one who's turning people to prisoners.
I don't know what you're talking about. Crinnan spat as he bent over to strip the player of his clothing. But you won't be needing any of this anymore.
No?
The player whispered in horror. His voice grew frantic.
I can't log out. My whole interface is gone. What did you do to me?
I gave you what you deserved, Govian, Crinnan said flatly as he began to put the clothes on. The linen shirt and pants that the demon had been wearing went on with no problem, but as soon as Crinnan tried to strap the armor on, it vanished into a plume of black smoke like the spiders had before. What? Crinnan asked, confused. What's going on? He tried to pull on the boots, but they too disappeared.
You do not meet the minimum percentile requirement for this item. Item destroyed.
Well, that's stupid, Crinnan grumbled. As he looked down at the naked corpse before him, he could hear the sobbing of the demon, which made him roll his eyes. Now you know how I felt, Crinnan said to the weeping player as he began to walk away. For a moment, he considered trying to fight the devil yeti again. He watched the beast pace back and forth in the distance and ultimately shook his head. And not after last time, Crinnan mumbled to himself. He's too strong. It felt nice finally having clothes on. For days, Crinnan had watched his happy parts flop all over the place as he traversed the burning landscape that was the hells. That had gotten old in the first minute. He was glad to finally be able to cover it all up. After some time, Crinnan found himself at the foot of a large hill. He looked up at the steep grade ahead of him, and all he could do was sigh. More treacherous landscape. More bullshit. He started climbing. After slipping a few times, kicking a rock, and cursing at the dirt, he finally reached the top. No! Crinnan heard a voice in the distance suddenly shout. He squinted to try and find who was shouting. He gripped his sword and listened. Stop, fiend! The voice shouted again. Depart from me, wicked iniquity! That's a weird way of talking, Crinnan muttered as he zoned in on the voice's location. He realized he could get some ranking out of this and possibly even move on to the next level like Sage had told him to do. Carefully, he ran down the hill and in the direction the voice was coming from. If not for these unjust limitations, Crinnan heard, I would blast you into nothingness, which is more than you're worth.
Quiet, bitch,
a familiar voice returned.
This is the hells. You will take what I give.
Crinnan finally found the owners of the voices. He saw the corpulent white demon that had eaten him when he first arrived in the hells. His hook had been set aside, and he pushed down on the back of a prisoner beneath him. The prisoner's ass was exposed, and Crinnan could only imagine the horrible things the demon player had in store for him. Hey, shithead! Crinnan shouted as he firmly held his sword in front of him. Get off of him, you sick fuck! The unexpected shouting took the demon player by surprise. He got to his feet much more quickly than he should have and turned to face Crinnan.
Who are you?
The surprised demon shouted back. He looked at Crinnan closely for a moment and then suddenly laughed when he saw the sword in his hand.
So, you think you're the one who will be doing the sticking, do you?
He turned and retrieved the massive hook from the ground.
I'll make this quick then. You'll wish you'd stayed away from me. That is, unless you enjoy being fucked, in which case we'll get along just fine.
Shut up. Crinnan approached the demon to the sound of his mocking laughter.
Not even the 80th percentile yet.
The demon snorted.
You got your buffs, but you ain't shit, little elf.
Feeling he had no way of losing a fight, he immediately jumped forward, swinging his hook. Crinnan darted out of the way, and the hook crashed into the ground, sending little bits of charred dirt flying toward him. Crinnan lunged forward and swiped at the demon with his blade. The demon roared in pain and confusion as he leaped backward and looked at the gash on his arm.
How the fuck?
He shouted as his face twisted into a furious expression. He growled and kept a safe distance from Crinnan.
How did you do that?
The demon demanded.
How could you possibly do that? Someone like you shouldn't be able to do damage like that. You're a new player, a new citizen, a nobody.
Welcome to the new hells, Crinnan quipped. I guess you forgot ripping my head off earlier. Newsflash, fucker. I am the demon now. He pounced forward and planted his sword in the fat demon's belly. The demon grunted and forcefully jerked away. The force of his large body threw Crinnan to the side. Crinnan lost hold of his sword and crashed into the ground next to the prisoner the demon was originally accosting. You must survive, noble warrior. The prisoner quickly crawled over and whispered to Crinnan. I can help you. That's the plan. Crinnan grunted as he hurried to his feet. He ran away from the prisoner, and the demon pursued.
I remember you now. What are you?
The demon growled.
You were a prisoner when I killed you. How are you? Is this another bug?
He barreled forward, knocking Crinnan over with his oversized, bleeding belly.
You can't win,
the demon sang as he slammed his hook into Crinnan's chest. Crinnan felt the point pierce through him and into the ground beneath. He gasped as the wind was knocked out of him. For the first time since his encounter with the same demon, Crinnan felt a sense of exhaustion. He felt as if his life energy was quickly fading once again, and as the demon raised Crinnan into the air, he knew he had to fight past his weariness and win.
Oh, yes, I can,
Crinnan resolved. With what speed he could muster, he reached down and ripped the sword he had left in the demon's belly free and swiped at his throat. The blade cut through his second chin, releasing a torrent of blood and fat. The demon rasped and dropped his hook, sending Crinnan back to the ground. Crinnan groaned with pain as he ripped his body free from the hook, leaving a gash in its wake. Painfully, he hobbled over to the demon, who was writhing on the ground, holding his neck.
Ow!
The demon gurgled.
Ow! You're just a newbie.
I guess I'm just better than you,
Crinnan muttered as he slammed the point of his blade through the demon's left eye. The demon went limp, and Crinnan let go of his weapon before he fell backward into the flames. He had won.